Hi everybody, it's Dot, and I'm slated to see you in 11 short hours. I can't wait. I'm also a little worried that it's going to snow tonight and we might not have class, so I wanted to give you a little bit of coaching to help you as you're revising your lesson plans, and also to let you know about some things that I'm noticing across several of them as I'm reading them. So I'm trying to get a little bit more bang for my feedback buck, as it were. Okay, so first, this little image is pulled straight from the Understanding Rubric Level Progressions manual that comes with all that EdTPA stuff, like the Making Good Choices and the handbook and so on. And so this page and this page they're actually both page 47. This top bit here, you'll see, is the essential literacy strategy, and the bottom bit is the requisite skills, right? And I've been using that, but I realized that maybe you all are less familiar with that than I realized, so I apologize for that. And as I was thinking about that, I realized that you also might be getting confused about how the words strategy, skills, and goals are being used by these different authors. So I'm going to show this to you sort of verbally, and then I tried to make a visual. And you all know how much of a visual person I am, so hopefully it will be helpful and not confusing. Okay, so we know where to find that essential literacy strategies information. Where that document, where EdTPA says essential literacy strategy, Saravallo is using the word goal. She's talking at sort of the chapter level. It's meaning focus. It's at the level of comprehension, composition, something you can teach toward with several different points or teaching points over many lessons. That's what she's getting at. So, like, the goal for chapter 7 has to do with understanding themes and ideas in fiction. And all the little lessons, 7.1, 7.2, and so on, are feeding toward that goal, right? So she's talking about goal. Essential literacy strategy is kind of operating on that level in that it's focusing on comprehension and composition. Where Saravallo says strategy, she's talking about the 300 little blurbs in the book, 300 little pages in the book. And so each of those is sort of a route you can take toward that goal. And you would probably teach several strategies for each goal. EdTPA would, for those strategies, sometimes call them skills, requisite skills, and sometimes they would call them an essential literacy strategy. And that's because Saravallo has some chapters, like chapter 1, chapter 3 and 4 in particular, that focus on issues that are at the sort of fluency, decoding, sort of spelling, word level, right? And then the other chapters, the ones we've focused on more in our class, are up at that comprehension, meaning making level. So that's a place where EdTPA is kind of slicing it differently than Saravallo is. So for her, strategy is like a thing that readers and writers do, or a thing I'm going to teach them to do to help me move toward the goal. And for EdTPA, the strategy ones are about meaning and the skill ones are about word level stuff, basically. When Saravallo says skill, she's actually talking about a strategy, like one of these in the book, like 5.15, that has been learned so well that it's become automatic without the scaffolds. So that could be any strategy in the whole book, a word level 1, fluency level 1, comprehension, etc. Any one of those individual strategies could get learned so well that someone would just use it in their reading without having to, focus on, say, the anchor chart or other tools. So she's saying we learn it as a strategy and then it evolves to become automatic and becomes a skill. And that's different, right, from what the EdTPA is saying. So when EdTPA says skill, they're talking about something at the word level. It's a little bit, it's like lightly derogatory. It's sort of a small, right, than things that are at the strategy level for EdTPA. I wish it weren't that way. That's just how they're using the words. We just have to deal with it. Okay, so here's my attempt to visualize this for you, or make a visual of it. So there in the blue is this thing that's focused on how we compose ideas and content, how we craft meaning, how we make meaning when we read at the level of ideas, right? And oops, no, oh, we're going to have to go through these again. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Okay, so all these little arrows are paths we can take toward that goal. And for Saravallo, for Saravallo, she calls this blue idea up here the goal, and then all these little paths are the strategies, right? And some of them are about like fluency or spelling or that kind of level, and some of them are more about composing ideas or comprehending text. And then I left this one blank, this second one from the right blank on purpose to say there's lots of other things that could go there, okay? So for Saravallo, these strategies are routes to get to the goal. And those strategies eventually become skills. Once they're learned so well, they become automatic. For EdTPA, the ones that are skills are the things that are kind of at that spelling, fluency, etc. level. And the ones that are essential literacy strategies are things that are about composing and comprehending text. And they kind of vary in their grain size. Some of them are kind of narrow and specific and might live down on these little, like, I don't know, fallopian tubes. Is that what I've got there? And then some of them, do I carry the metaphor forward? Yeah, some of them, I guess, are in the uterus here. So my husband's here watching soccer and enjoying this immensely, I'm sure. Okay, so that's all that. Uterus, fallopian tubes versus circle and circle. Let's not try to extrapolate that. Okay. All right. So another thing that is challenging is this assessment piece. So I added in here some language to clarify what we're looking for here. And the point here isn't that this is the one way to do it. It's just that filling in these boxes this way will make you think about the things you need to think about in order to do a good job with this, basically. So on the left, you've got the assessment strategy, and you can start with just what data will you collect. And I'm not talking about like dibbles. I'm not even really talking necessarily about the kinds of data we started with. It very well could be observation, but you have to say what you're going to observe. Like, I'm going to observe the turn and talk where the kids share what was similar and different about their books or whatever. The thing I'm going to listen for, the thing I'm going to listen to, look at, and so on. Then when you go up over on the right-hand side, the alignment with the learning objectives is your chance to revisit your learning objective. You can even paste it right there and then just, somehow note or check that your data source and the criteria we'll talk about match up with the learning objective. So if the learning objective is about students being able to compare and contrast characters within a text, and your assessment is about whether they were paying attention, well, that assessment doesn't really match that objective. And then here, evidence of student understanding is where you identify your criteria, your look-fors. And again, this doesn't have to be a whole big rubric, doesn't have to be super formal, but you do want to identify what you're looking for. Okay, if I'm asking kids to compare and contrast characters, I might be listening for them to just be able to compare and contrast basic things like, I don't know, gender identity and appearance and kind of surface features. Maybe I want them to compare and contrast something a little deeper like personality traits or emotions, maybe even further like actions or the effect they have on some event. Like you could go further and further with it. And if you think ahead of time about what you're looking for, then you're going to have a much easier time knowing whether students have met the objective, right? Your look for matches your objective and you teach to that objective, and then you check to see if kids learned it. And then you refine your instruction from there. And on we go. So think about that in the moment. It's probably going to be something you listen, look for right during that 5 minutes. And then also think about as you're moving toward that larger goal, what else will you continue to look for? Just going to yawn real quick. Okay, sorry. Student feedback. So this is how you are going to give feedback to the students about their progress toward the objective, and specifically like how they achieved the criteria in the data source. So I'm listening to this conversation and I hear the students compare the appearances of these two characters. And what I was looking for was for them to compare the emotions that they had. And so I'm going to think about how am I going to give them feedback about that. It might be right in the moment. So maybe my medium for doing that is just talking to them, but I might want to think about like, what can I say there? What kind of thing might I say? Like, okay, like I hear that you're making this comparison and like a next step might be this, right? So you're kind of coaching. And then this last bit is about any ways that you're going to accommodate, make modifications or accommodations so that every student can show what they do know and can do from that strengths-based perspective. Yay! Okay, I should have put this before the last one, but here it is. Learning objective. I've talked about this before. This is one of the hardest things sometimes for candidates. But once you get the hang of it, it becomes kind of like obvious. Like it's once you get over the hump, you're going to have it. And it's going to be really helpful always. So you're used to this SWIBOT. Students will be able to blank, right? And we often see that as like students will be able to glue macaroni to the paper to form the letter A or whatever it is. But that's not the thing that you're hoping that they will do today and every day. Hopefully, the glue macaroni lesson is probably about fine motor skills, letter identification, letter construction, and so on, right? Or letter formation. So you're not describing like, here's what we're going to do today. Like we're all going to sit in a circle and do X. Instead, our learning objective is about as a result of participating in whatever our activities are today and learning the content and skill I'm teaching, the students will walk back into their reading and writing lives, not just in my class, but in their life, always able to do such and such. So that's the today and every day. And even if that's in a beginning way. So you might have the same objective year after year that's kind of refined. So we're not going to say the students will be able to read Sandra Cisneros' 11 and make correct inferences about why the speaker is upset about the red sweater. This is where there's like an old manky sweater and the teacher insists that it's the speaker's sweater and it really isn't, and so on. So it's not about making that inference, right? Even though making that inference might be a main part of what we do in the lesson. The idea is that after we have a lesson where we're focusing on that, maybe that inference as an example, that lesson is going to be in service of a larger today and everyday strategy, right? So after that lesson that focuses on this bigger strategy and uses Sandra Cisneros' 11 as an example, the students will be able to do something like deconstruct metaphorical language to help them infer reasons for particular character emotions, like in this text and other texts today and always. You don't have to say that whole mouthful. You could just say students will be able to deconstruct metaphors to make inferences or whatever is like appropriate to what you're trying to do. But the idea is it's not a list of the activities. It's a statement about what they're going to walk away with. So why harp on this seemingly minor point? Why is Dot nagging me about this? Great question. Thanks for asking. So here's why. When we articulate learning objectives as lists of the lesson activities, the students will glue macaroni to the paper. Our lessons are going to meet those objectives whether students have learned anything or not. If I say they're going to glue the stuff, I mean, unless they're not complying with my instructions, they're going to glue the macaroni and then I can be like, hey, I met my objective. But they may have learned nothing, right? So instead, when we articulate our objectives in terms of what tools students will walk away able to use, our evaluation of whether the students met the objective depends then on our assessment of their learning, not on whether we followed the lesson plan. So it's not about did they glue the macaroni to the paper. It's about did they walk away from the lesson with maybe a clearer idea of what the letter A looks like, or move a little closer to being able to form it with paper pencil, right? That's a today and every day. So when we think that way about like, okay, my objective is that the students walk away able to do such and such as an everyday thing that's part of their literate practice, that's going to push us to plan lessons that help students develop tools and not just involve them in activities. My friend Heather often calls this the accordion legs phenomenon. If you've ever done art projects with kids, you've probably made accordion legs. Turkeys with accordion legs.
I never have.
My husband's never made accordion legs. I never imagined that I would marry someone who had never made accordion legs. You know, you can picture it. Even if you don't know what it is, you can picture it. Like you take the paper, fold it back and forth forever.
It looks like an accordion.
And it looks like a little leg. And isn't that great? And it's like, wow, they did that activity and they learned nothing, especially when it's the 10th time they've done it. Okay, wow, 16 minutes. What is happening? Okay, last little bit, I think. This is like the main part of your lesson. And it's only a quickie, right? 5 minutes or so. I put in here just some sentence frames that may help you. You're allowed to have your own language, but as I'm reading them, I'm noticing some folks are having more or less kind of challenge in getting their language around what they want to say here. So, you know, that structure we've been working with. Readers and writers, lately we have been making lots of accordion legs. I've noticed you've really been folding your accordion legs tightly. Today I'm going to teach you to make accordion legs that can do the snowboard half pipe. I feel like we've gone astray here. So one thing that readers and writers do when they're reading and writing is, I don't know how to turn this into something meaningful now. You get the idea. Remember to actually teach your planned language supports. So when you think about your vocabulary and syntax and discourse stuff, you actually want to teach that stuff. It doesn't have to be long, but coach that sentence frame. Use that anchor chart. Let me show you what I mean is powerful. It doesn't always have to be a demo in this kind of lesson, but it is a powerful tool. Now we're all going to try it. That's kind of a reminder to you to make sure that everybody gets to try it with support. And then link today and every day when you're reading or writing books with accordion legs in them and you run into a snowboard half pipe, you can do such and such.
Mad Libs?
That might have been, yeah, it's Mad Libs. I'm teaching with Mad Libs. That might have been more effective if I'd actually used a real thing. So if you have questions about that, please ask. I won't belabor the point. And then I'm noticing some blank, the students will say do side, which is a little sad. I know it's a lot of teacher talk, ironically, as I'm sitting here on minute 18. And that is true. The point, though, don't forget, the point is that we do this quick little burst of teacher talk and modeling that sets them up to dive right in and practice. So think about what you want to see, hear, observe, what you want them doing with their brains and bodies, even if it's not anything elaborate. Okay, don't make them invisible. Okay, so if we have class tomorrow, we're going to have a lesson planning workshop, but that's something you can do on your own time too. Yay, yay you. Okay, so this has been fun. I'm going to get back into the all night long process of giving feedback on your lessons. And da 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 all night. Woo! Yeah. So my husband loves that. And I hope you're all staying safe and warm and cozy and enjoying a hot chocolate or hot toddy or whatever suits your fancy. Okay. Thanks. Later.